Listen, I need you to understand something right from the start. When your own parents take you to court because you won't fund your sister's luxury divorce lawyer, you learn real quick who your family actually is. My name is Hannah, I'm 32 years old, and this is the story of how I went from being the family doormat to the person they wish they'd never crossed. Let me paint you a picture of my life before everything exploded. While my younger sister Rebecca was getting her nails done every week and planning themed birthday parties that cost more than my monthly rent, I was working double shifts at a medical billing company and waiting tables on weekends. I'm not saying this for sympathy, I'm saying it because it matters. Every dollar I earned, I split 3 ways: rent, food, and my savings account. That savings account was my lifeline, my future, my way out of the cramped studio apartment in Queens where my bathroom was so small you had to step into the hallway to change your mind. For 5 years, I lived like that. 5 years of instant ramen and saying no to drinks with coworkers because I couldn't afford the subway fare there and back. 5 years of watching Rebecca post Instagram stories from the Hamptons, while I picked up extra shifts during holidays. But I never complained to my parents. Never asked them for a dime. Because I had a plan, and that plan was simple: buy my own place. Something that was mine. Something no one could take away from me. Last July, my plan finally came together. I closed on a 2-bedroom apartment in Astoria. It wasn't fancy, the kitchen was outdated, the living room carpet needed replacing, and the bathroom tiles were that unfortunate shade of pink that screamed 1987. But it had big windows that let in morning light, and when I got the keys, I sat on the empty floor of my empty living room and cried. Not sad tears. Relief tears. Freedom tears. You know who didn't cry? My parents. My mother looked at the chipped countertops and said, "Well, I hope you got a good deal." My father asked if the neighborhood was safe, like I was too stupid to have checked that myself. Rebecca came by once, walked through in 15 minutes, and spent the whole time on her phone. She left without even saying goodbye. But that was fine. I didn't buy the apartment for their approval. I bought it because I needed to prove to myself that I could build something real through hard work and sacrifice. That I could make my own way in a city that chews people up and spits them out. Meanwhile, Rebecca was living in a completely different universe. She'd married Lucas Pemberton 3 years earlier, investment banker whose family owned half of Connecticut. Their wedding cost more than my entire education. They lived in a restored brownstone in Park Slope with a private garden, a wine cellar, and a housekeeper who came 4 times a week. Rebecca didn't work. She volunteered at charity galas and took hot yoga classes that cost $40 per session. We were sisters, but we might as well have been from different planets. Then, 6 months after I bought my apartment, Rebecca's perfect life started cracking at the foundation. The first sign of trouble came on a Tuesday morning in January. I was getting ready for work, drinking coffee that tasted like hot cardboard because I'd bought the cheap brand again, when my phone started blowing up. 3 missed calls from my mother. 5 texts from Rebecca. 2 voicemails from my father. I almost ignored them. In my family, drama was a regular Tuesday, and I'd learned that staying out of it was the smartest move. But something about the urgency made me call back. My mother answered before the first ring finished. "Hannah. Thank God. We need to talk about your sister." Of course we did. It was always about Rebecca. What happened now? I asked, stirring my coffee and checking the time. I had 20 minutes before I needed to catch the train. Lucas is divorcing her. My mother's voice cracked. He just served her papers yesterday. Some lawyer showed up at the house with documents. Rebecca is absolutely devastated. I felt a small, guilty flicker of satisfaction. Then I felt bad about the satisfaction. Then I wondered why I should feel bad when Rebecca had spent years rubbing her privileged life in my face. "That's terrible," I said, meaning it halfway. "What happened?" Silence. The kind of silence that meant my mother was choosing her words carefully, which meant the truth was ugly. "There were some indiscretions," she finally said. "On Rebecca's part." Indiscretions. That was a fancy word for cheating. Over the next few hours, I pieced together the full story from various family members who called to fill me in, each adding their own dramatic flair. Rebecca had been having an affair with her personal trainer, Cody, because of course his name was Cody, for almost 8 months. They'd been sloppy about it too. Hotel receipts on the shared credit card. Text messages Lucas found when Rebecca left her phone on the kitchen counter. The trainer even posted a photo on social media at a restaurant where Rebecca had told Lucas she was having dinner with her book club. Lucas, who'd apparently been more observant than anyone gave him credit for, had hired a private investigator. The investigator delivered a file 3 inches thick. Photos, text transcripts, credit card statements, the whole package. Lucas took it to his lawyer, and 48 hours later, Rebecca was being served divorce papers. Here's the part that made me laugh. Privately, in my apartment where no one could judge me, the prenup. Lucas had insisted on one before the wedding. Rebecca had signed it without reading it carefully, because she never thought she'd need to worry about it. Why would she? She was living the dream. The prenup was airtight. If the marriage ended due to infidelity on her part, she got nothing. No settlement. No alimony. No stake in the brownstone or the Connecticut properties or the investment accounts. She'd walk away with whatever came into the marriage, which was basically her wardrobe and a checking account with maybe $6,000. 3 years of luxury living, gone in one careless affair. By Thursday, my mother called again. "We need to have a family meeting," she said. "This Sunday. Your father and I want everyone together to discuss how we are going to help Rebecca through this." Red flags immediately went up in my mind. Help her how? Just come to dinner, Hannah. We'll explain everything then. I should have trusted my gut. I should have made up an excuse about work or a friend's birthday or a sudden case of bubonic plague. Anything to avoid that dinner. But I didn't. Because despite everything, some small stupid part of me still wanted to be part of the family. Still wanted to believe that maybe, just this once, they'd called me because they valued my opinion, not because they needed something from me. So that Sunday, I put on clean jeans and a sweater, took the train to my parents' house in Forest Hills, and walked straight into an ambush. The moment I stepped through my parents' front door, I knew something was off. The dining room table was set formally, the good china, cloth napkins, wine glasses even though no one was drinking wine. My father sat at the head of the table in his reading glasses, looking like he was about to chair a board meeting. My mother hovered near the kitchen, wringing her hands. And Rebecca sat to my father's right with a binder in front of her. A thick binder with colored tabs sticking out the side. "Hannah, you're here." My mother hugged me too tightly. Sit. Right here next to Rebecca." I Saturday. The chair felt like a trap closing. "So," my father began, folding his hands on the table like a CEO about to announce layoffs. "I'm sure you've heard about your sister's situation." "The divorce?" "Yeah. Mom told me." Rebecca's eyes were red and puffy. Her hair, usually glossy and perfect, was pulled back in a messy ponytail. She looked genuinely destroyed, and despite everything, I felt a pinch of sympathy. Getting divorced sucks, even if you brought it on yourself. "Rebecca needs a lawyer," my father continued. "Not just any lawyer. She needs someone who can challenge the prenup, who can argue that she's entitled to something after 3 years of marriage." I nodded slowly. "Okay. That makes sense." "The lawyer she needs is Marissa Chen, best divorce attorney in New York. She's gotten settlements for clients that people thought were impossible." Of course Rebecca wanted the best. She always wanted the best. "The problem," my mother cut in, sitting down across from me, "is that Marissa charges $850 an hour. The retainer alone is $40,000. I felt the blood drain from my face. 40,000. "Rebecca needs a strong legal team," my father said firmly. "Lucas has unlimited resources. If she doesn't fight with everything she has, she'll walk away with nothing." "But..." I looked around the table. "Don't you have retirement savings? Couldn't you take out a loan?" My mother laughed, but it wasn't a happy sound. "Hannah, we've already given Rebecca everything we could. We paid for the wedding." "You paid for part of it," Rebecca interrupted. "Lucas's family paid for most of it." "We paid for your car," my father continued. "We've been giving you money monthly since the divorce papers were served. We don't have $40,000 just sitting around." The room went quiet. I could hear the kitchen clock ticking. Then my mother reached across the table and took my hand. Her palm was warm and slightly damp. "We've been thinking about solutions, honey. And we realized, You have equity now. In your apartment. My stomach dropped. What? Your apartment in Astoria, my father said, like I might have forgotten which apartment I owned. You bought it last year. You must have built up some equity by now, plus you put down a decent down payment. I pulled my hand away from my mother's. Wait. Are you seriously suggesting I sell my apartment? Just temporarily. Rebecca said quickly, opening her binder. Inside were printed spreadsheets, market analyses, and what looked like real estate listings. Look, I had a friend pull some comps for your area. Your place could sell for at least $30,000 more than you paid. Maybe more if we stage it right. You'd make money, and you could use some of that for Rebecca's legal fees. And then where would I live? My voice came out louder than I intended. With us. My mother gestured around the house like she was presenting a prize. Your old room is still here. You could stay here until this all gets sorted out, and then once Rebecca gets her settlement, she'll pay you back. Pay me back. I stood up so fast my chair scraped against the floor. You want me to sell the apartment I spent 5 years saving for, move back into my childhood bedroom, and just trust that Rebecca will pay me back someday? Family helps family, Hannah, my father said in that tone he used when he expected obedience. We helped you when you were younger. Helped me? When? I was shaking now. I put myself through college. I worked 2 jobs. You never gave me money for anything. We gave you a roof over your head for 18 years, my mother said, her voice getting defensive. We fed you, clothed you, paid for your school supplies. That's called being a parent. You don't get medals for doing the bare minimum. Rebecca slammed her hand on the table. This is exactly what I told them you'd say. You've always been selfish, Hannah. Always. You never want to help anyone but yourself. Something inside me snapped. Selfish? I'm selfish? You're the one who cheated on your husband, blew up your own marriage, and now wants everyone else to fix it for you. How dare you? Rebecca started. No. I grabbed my bag. How dare all of you? I worked my ass off for that apartment. I lived in a showbox for 5 years, eating garbage food and wearing clothes from Goodwill, while you were getting spa treatments and posting about your blessed life on social media. I'm not selling my home to fund your divorce lawyer because you couldn't keep it in your pants. The silence that followed was arctic. My father stood up slowly. Hannah, sit down. We're not finished. Yeah, we are. I headed for the door. Don't call me again unless it's to apologize. I left them sitting there in stunned silence, got in my car, and drove home with my hands shaking on the wheel. For 1 week, I heard nothing. No calls. No texts. No surprise visits. I actually started to believe they'd accepted my answer. Then the certified letter arrived. It was a Thursday morning, February cold, the kind that makes your bones ache. I was getting ready for work when someone knocked on my door. Heavy, official knocks. I opened it to find a woman in a professional suit holding a clipboard. Hannah Winters. Yes. You've been served. She handed me a manila envelope, had me sign for it, and walked away before I could even process what was happening. I stood in my doorway in my bathrobe and fuzzy socks, holding an envelope that felt like it weighed 10 pounds. My hands shook as I opened it. Summons and complaint, the header read in bold letters. I scanned the first page. Then I read it again. Then a third time because my brain couldn't make sense of what I was seeing. My parents were suing me. My own parents had taken me to court. The allegations were insane. Plaintiff alleges defendant has been unjustly enriched through familial support and resources provided during minority, and is now refusing to reciprocate such support in a time of family crisis. Plaintiff alleges breach of implied family commitment and obligation. Plaintiff alleges defendant's refusal to assist family member in need constitutes emotional distress and financial harm. They were suing me for not selling my apartment. They were actually taking me to court because I wouldn't give Rebecca money for her divorce lawyer. But it got worse. Attached to the complaint was an itemized bill. Pages of it. Every expense they claimed to have spent raising me. Diapers and baby supplies, $1,240. Food, estimated 18 years, $12,970. Clothing, $8,450. School supplies and activities, $3,200. Medical and dental, $4,560. Birthday parties and gifts, $5,450. Transportation and miscellaneous, $6,890. Total, $42,760. They wanted me to pay them back for raising me. Like childhood came with a payment plan and I'd missed the fine print. I sat on my couch, still in my bathrobe, and stared at the papers until the words blurred. Then I called in sick to work, made a pot of coffee so strong it could strip paint, and started Googling lawyers. By noon, I was sitting in the office of Paul Martinez, a family law attorney whose website promised aggressive defense for unconventional cases. He was in his 50s, with silver hair and glasses that kept sliding down his nose. I handed him the lawsuit. He read the first page. Then he started laughing. Actually laughing. Not a polite chuckle, a full, bent over his desk, wheezing laugh. "I'm sorry," he said, wiping his eyes. "I'm so sorry. This is the most ridiculous thing I've seen in 23 years of practice. So you can help me." "Help you?" "Hannah, this case will be dismissed so fast it'll make your parents' heads spin. There is no legal basis for any of this. None. Parents cannot sue their adult children for the cost of raising them. That's not how parenting works. That's not how the law works." Relief flooded through me. "So I'm fine." "Oh, you're absolutely fine. In fact." He leaned back in his chair, studying me. "If you want to countersue for harassment, emotional distress, and legal fees, you'd have a strong case." "Countersue? My own parents. They sued you first." He shrugged. "Sometimes people need to learn that actions have consequences. But that's your call. I won't push you either way." I left his office feeling lighter but also deeply sad. This was my family. The people who were supposed to love me unconditionally. And they'd taken me to court. The next 2 weeks were brutal. Word spread through the extended family like wildfire. My aunt called to tell me I was being selfish. My uncle sent a long email about family values and how disappointed he was. Cousins I hadn't talked to in years suddenly had opinions about my choices. Rebecca posted on Facebook, "Some people forget where they came from. Some people forget who helped them get where they are. Family means everything to me. I guess not everyone feels the same way. Broken heart." Within hours, the post had 37 comments, most of them from people who didn't know me, telling me what a terrible person I was. I wanted to respond. I wanted to scream the truth into the void of social media. But Paul had advised me to stay quiet, to let the legal process play out. So I stayed silent. I went to work. I came home to my apartment. I existed in a bubble of quiet fury, waiting for the court date. It arrived sooner than I expected. The courthouse in downtown Brooklyn was exactly as depressing as you'd imagine. Fluorescent lights, scuffed floors, and the smell of anxiety and bad coffee. I met Paul outside courtroom 7B at 9 in the morning. He was carrying a briefcase that looked almost empty. "That's all you brought?" I asked nervously. "Hannah, I could defend this case with a napkin and a crayon. Trust me." We walked in. My parents were already seated on the other side with their lawyer, a thin man in an expensive suit who looked like he wished he was anywhere else. Rebecca sat between them, dressed like she was going to a funeral. Black dress, minimal makeup, the picture of a wronged woman. She wouldn't look at me. The bailiff called us to order. Judge Raymond Cooper entered, a black man in his 60s with grey at his temples and the kind of tired eyes that said he'd seen every flavour of family dysfunction. "Case number 2024 CV 8843, the bailiff announced. Winters versus Winters. Judge Cooper looked at the file, then at both tables. "This is a lawsuit by parents against their adult daughter. Is that correct?" "Yes, Your Honor," my parents' lawyer said, standing. "My clients are seeking reimbursement for expenses incurred during the raising of the defendant, as well as damages for emotional distress caused by her refusal to provide family support during a crisis." The judge took off his glasses and cleaned them slowly. "Counselor, are you aware of any legal precedent for parents suing their adult children for reimbursement of child-rearing costs?" The lawyer shifted uncomfortably. Your Honor, while traditional precedent may not exist, my clients believe there is an implied familial contract. An implied familial contract. Judge Cooper put his glasses back on. To be clear, your clients are arguing that because they fed, clothed, and housed their daughter, which is their legal obligation as parents, she now owes them money. And emotional support for her sister during a difficult divorce, which she is under no legal obligation to provide. The judge turned to Paul. Defense. Paul stood. Your Honor, this lawsuit is frivolous. There is no legal basis for any of the plaintiff's claims. Parents have a legal duty to care for their minor children. That duty does not create debt. The defendant is under no obligation, moral or legal, to sell her property to fund her sister's legal fees. Your Honor, if I may, my parents' lawyer tried to interrupt. You may not. Judge Cooper looked at my parents directly. Mr. and Mrs. Winters, I want to be very clear. You cannot sue your child for being your child. You cannot invoice her for diapers and birthday parties. That's not how parenthood works. That's not how the law works. My father stood up. Your Honor, with all due respect, our daughter has the means to help her sister. She has equity in a property. We are simply asking that she contribute. You're not asking. The judge cut him off. You're suing. And your lawsuit has no merit whatsoever. My mother's voice came out small and wounded. She's family. Family helps each other. Judge Cooper leaned forward. Mrs. Winters, your daughter bought a home through her own hard work. You're asking her to sell that home to fund a divorce lawyer for a sister whose marriage ended due to her own actions. Do you not see how unreasonable that is? Silence. This case is dismissed. He banged his gavel once. With prejudice. The plaintiffs are also ordered to pay the defendant's legal fees. Next case. It was over in less than 10 minutes. I stood there in shock as my parents' lawyer quickly gathered his papers, clearly embarrassed. Rebecca was crying. My mother looked like someone had slapped her. My father's face had gone red and blotchy. Paul touched my elbow. Let's go. We walked out of the courtroom, and I felt like I could breathe for the first time in weeks. That's it? It's over? It's over. Paul stopped in the hallway. But Hannah, I need to tell you something. Off the record. His tone made me nervous. What? That judge has been on the bench for 18 years. He's seen a lot of family cases. And before we left, he pulled me aside briefly. Paul lowered his voice. He said he's seen situations like this before. Parents who lose in court, who feel humiliated, who double down instead of backing off. He wanted me to warn you, they might not stop. My stomach sank. What do you mean? He means they might escalate. Harassment, slander, trying to make your life difficult in other ways. I'm not saying they will. I'm saying be prepared. As if on cue, my phone buzzed. A text from a number I didn't recognize. You just destroyed this family. I hope you're proud. Then another. Everyone knows what you did. You'll regret this. I showed Paul. He sighed. Document everything. Every text, every email, every contact. Because if they don't stop, we have options. I went home that day feeling victory and dread in equal measure. The victory didn't last long. For exactly 3 days, I had peace. 3 days of silence from my family. 3 days of coming home to my apartment without drama. 3 days of thinking maybe, possibly, this nightmare was actually over. Then the building manager knocked on my door. Ms. Winters? We need to talk. Her name was Patricia, a woman in her 60s who'd always been friendly in a distant, professional way. Now she looked uncomfortable, like she was about to fire me. Is something wrong? I asked. I received some concerning correspondence about you. Anonymous emails to the HOA board. They claim you've been exhibiting erratic behavior, that you might be mentally unstable, that other residents have complained about noise and disturbances. My blood went cold. What? That's not true. None of that is true. I didn't think so. You've been a model tenant. But the board requires me to follow up on all complaints. I need to ask, have you been having any issues? Any problems I should know about? The only problem I have is my family harassing me. I pulled out my phone and showed her the lawsuit dismissal document I'd saved. My parents sued me last week. The case was thrown out. This is retaliation. Patricia's expression shifted from concern to anger. They're making false reports to your HOA. Apparently. Well, that's not going to work. I'll inform the board that these complaints are part of a family dispute and have no basis in fact. But Hannah, if this continues, you might want to consider getting a restraining order. A restraining order. Against my own parents. That same evening, I got a call from my supervisor at work. Hannah, hey. Quick question. Did your emergency contact information change recently? No, why? We got a weird call today. Someone claiming to be your sister said you'd been in an accident and she needed to speak to your supervisor about your health insurance information. When I asked for details, she got vague and hung up. Rebecca had called my workplace pretending I'd been in an accident, probably trying to get information she could use somehow or just trying to cause problems for me. This was insane. This had moved beyond a family disagreement into something vindictive and calculated. I called Paul immediately. They're not stopping, I told him, my voice shaking. They're contacting my building, my work, sending anonymous emails. They're trying to ruin my life. Okay. Paul's voice was calm, grounded. Here's what we are going to do. First, document every single instance. Screenshots, forwarded emails, written statements from your supervisor and building manager. Second, I'm going to draft a cease and desist letter. And third, if they violate that letter, we file for a restraining order and we countersue for harassment, defamation, and emotional distress. Countersue? You mentioned that before, but, Paul, these are my parents. Hannah, your parents sued you first. They lost. Now they're trying to destroy your reputation and interfere with your employment. They're not acting like parents. They're acting like bullies. And bullies only understand one thing: consequences. That night, I sat in my apartment, my beautiful, hard-earned, piece-of-peace apartment, and cried. Not sad tears. Angry tears. Frustrated tears. Why is this my family tears? Then I dried my eyes, opened my laptop, and started doing something I hadn't done in 5 years, saving money again. Not for a house this time. For a legal war chest. Because if Paul was right, if my parents weren't going to stop, then I needed to be prepared to fight back. And I was done being the quiet one. The cease and desist letter went out the next week. It was 5 pages of legal language that essentially said, stop contacting Hannah, stop contacting her associates, stop spreading false information, or face legal consequences. For 2 days, nothing happened. Then my mother called from a new number. I didn't answer. She left a voicemail. Hannah, honey, please. We need to talk. You don't understand the position Rebecca is in. Lucas's lawyers are destroying her. She's going to end up with nothing. You're her sister. You're my daughter. How can you be so cruel? How can you let lawyers come between family? Please, just call me back. We can work this out. The manipulation was so thick I could taste it. The guilt-tripping, the victim language, the implication that I was the one tearing the family apart. I forwarded the voicemail to Paul. His response was immediate. This violates the cease and desist. Do you want to proceed with the restraining order and countersuit? I stared at that message for a long time. This was the point of no return. If I did this, there was no going back. No future reconciliation. No pretending things could ever be normal again. But things were never normal. Not really. I'd spent my whole life trying to earn their approval, their respect, their love. And all I'd ever been to them was a resource. A backup plan. Someone to lean on when their golden child fell apart. I typed back, yes. Let's proceed. Within 48 hours, Paul filed the paperwork. Restraining orders for all 3 of them. My mother, my father, and Rebecca. They were prohibited from contacting me directly, from coming within 500 feet of my home or workplace, and from making any public statements about me. The countersuit was more comprehensive. Harassment. Defamation. Intentional infliction of emotional distress. Legal fees from the original lawsuit. Legal fees from the countersuit. We weren't asking for a specific dollar amount yet. Paul said we'd let them sweat first, let them imagine how bad it could get. They were served papers on a Friday afternoon. By Saturday morning, my phone had 17 missed calls from various family members. By Sunday, my email inbox had 43 messages, ranging from furious to pleading. I read none of them. I forwarded everything to Paul and blocked the senders. On Monday morning, Paul called. Their lawyer wants to talk about settling. Already. They're scared, Hannah. The restraining orders are public record. The countersuit is public record. They're facing the possibility of this going to trial, where all their behavior, the frivolous lawsuit, the harassment, the false reports, becomes documented in court testimony. They want this to go away. What do they want? I'll find out. But Hannah, we're in control now. You get to decide how this ends. For the first time in 2 months, I smiled. The mediation took place in a sterile conference room in a law office in Midtown. Neutral territory. Paul sat beside me on one side of a long table. Across from us sat my parents, Rebecca, and their lawyer, though notably, they'd switched lawyers. The expensive suit guy was gone, replaced by a younger woman who looked like she'd rather be anywhere else. My father looked like he'd aged 5 years. My mother's hands shook as she clasped them on the table. Rebecca wouldn't make eye contact with anyone. The mediator, a patient woman named Diane, opened with standard procedure talk. We are here to see if we can reach an agreement that satisfies both parties and avoids trial. All discussions here are confidential and cannot be used in court if we don't reach an agreement. Does everyone understand? We all nodded. Diane turned to Paul. Would the defendant like to present terms? Paul opened a folder and slid a single sheet of paper across the table. My parents' lawyer picked it up and read it. Her eyebrows rose slightly. These are the defendant's terms for settlement, Paul said, his voice professionally neutral. They are non-negotiable. The terms were simple. All parties agree to a permanent no-contact arrangement. No phone calls, no emails, no texts, no social media contact, no third-party communication. All parties agree to make no public or private statements about Hannah Winters, positive or negative. Plaintiffs pay all of defendants' legal fees from both the original lawsuit and the countersuit, totaling $12,847. Plaintiffs agree to drop any and all claims now and in the future related to familial obligation or financial support. Restraining orders remain in place for a minimum of 2 years. My mother's voice cracked. You want us to never speak to you again? Ever? I spoke for the first time. You sued me. You tried to force me to sell my home. When that didn't work, you tried to ruin my life. What part of that makes you think I want you in my life? We made mistakes, my father said. His voice was smaller than I'd ever heard it. We were desperate. Rebecca needed help. Rebecca needed to face the consequences of her own choices, I interrupted. And instead of letting her do that, you decided to sacrifice me. Again. Like you've done my entire life. That's not fair, Rebecca said quietly. We never. Not fair. I leaned forward. You posted on social media that I abandoned the family. You called my workplace pretending I was in an accident. You sent false reports to my HOA claiming I was unstable. You tried to make me lose my home, my job, my reputation. And you think I'm being unfair? Silence. Their lawyer cleared her throat. My clients are prepared to agree to terms 1, 3, and 4. However, they're asking if there's any possibility of modifying the no-contact arrangement to allow for potential future reconciliation. No, I said flatly. These terms are final. Accept them or we go to trial. Paul added, and if we go to trial, we'll be pursuing maximum damages. The harassment is well documented. The false reports are provable. A jury will not be sympathetic to parents who sued their daughter for the cost of raising her. My parents' lawyer looked at them. I strongly advise you to accept these terms. My mother was crying now, quiet tears running down her face. Hannah, please. You're our daughter. We love you. You love what I can do for you, I said. That's not the same thing. My father's jaw tightened. I could see him wanting to argue, to command, to lecture me about respect and family and obligation. But he had no power here. For the first time in my life, he had no power over me. Fine, he finally said. We'll sign. The actual signing took less than 15 minutes. 3 signatures on multiple copies of the agreement. My parents' lawyer witnessed and dated each one. Diane made copies for everyone. As we stood to leave, my mother tried one last time. Hannah, what if there's an emergency? What if someone gets sick or... Then you'll handle it without me, I said. Like I've been handling everything without you my entire life. I walked out of that conference room with Paul beside me, got in a cab, and went home. To my apartment. My beautiful, messy, imperfect, completely mine apartment. That was 7 months ago. My parents paid the legal fees in full within 2 weeks. The restraining orders are still in place. I've had 0 contact with any of them, and honestly, I don't miss it. I don't miss the guilt trips or the manipulation or the constant feeling that I was never quite good enough. I heard through the grapevine, a cousin who still talks to me despite the family drama, that Rebecca never got the fancy divorce lawyer. She ended up with a public defender equivalent and walked away from her marriage with exactly what the prenup said, nothing. She moved back in with my parents. Last I heard, she was working retail at a department store in the mall and complaining about how unfair her life turned out. My parents apparently told everyone that I'm troubled and cut them off for no reason. Some family members believed them. Some didn't. I don't care either way. The people who matter know the truth. As for me, I'm thriving. I got a promotion at work. Turns out, when you're not constantly dealing with family drama, you have more energy for your career. I started dating someone I met at a coffee shop, someone who thinks it's impressive that I bought my own apartment and doesn't understand why anyone would expect me to sell it. I adopted a cat named Mabel who sleeps on my bed and knocks over my coffee in the mornings. My apartment is full now. Not with expensive furniture or designer touches, but with things I chose. Books I actually want to read. Art I actually like. A couch that's comfortable instead of impressive. Plants that I somehow manage to keep alive. Every morning, I wake up to sunlight through my bedroom window. I make coffee in my kitchen. I get ready for work in my bathroom with the unfortunate pink tiles that I'll replace someday when I feel like it. And every morning, I feel peace. Not because I won some battle or proved some point, but because I finally learned what I should have known all along. You don't owe anyone your future just because they were part of your past. You don't owe anyone your hard work just because they think they're entitled to it. And you sure as hell don't owe anyone your home, the thing you built with your own hands, just because they're related to you. Family is supposed to lift you up, not tear you down. And if they can't do that, then they're not family. They're just people you used to know. I kept my apartment. I kept my self-respect. I kept my peace. And honestly, that's worth more than any relationship with people who saw me as a resource instead of a person. Sometimes I think about reaching out. Not to reconcile, but just to see if they ever understood what they did wrong. Then I remember the lawsuit, the harassment, the manipulation, and I realize, it doesn't matter if they understand. What matters is that I understand. I understand that I deserved better. I understand that I built something real through years of sacrifice. I understand that walking away from toxicity, even family toxicity, isn't cruel. It's survival. And I'm not just surviving anymore. I'm living. In my apartment. In my life. On my terms. And nobody, not my parents, not my sister, not anyone, can take that away from me.